Hello and good day everyone. In this video, we will discuss what is weather and climate. Before we start, let's have first a warm-up activity wherein you will identify the following statement if it talks about a weather or a climate. I will give you 10 seconds to answer the following. And the timer starts now. Now let's see if your answers are correct. The answer for number 1 is weather. Because the condition might change in any minute. Where it is sunny today, the next might be rainy. Number 2. Climate. Because it indicates the location of the Philippines, which is near the equator and is expected to have an average of wet and dry season. Number 3. Weather. Because weather can change rapidly at any time. And the last, number 4. It is weather. Take note that a typhoon is a weather disturbance. That's why the answer is weather, and typhoon does not always happen or occur. Now let us differentiate the weather and climate. A weather is a short-term condition of the atmosphere of a place at a particular time, a temporary behavior of the atmosphere on a certain time. And because it is a short term, it can change rapidly any time. Sample statements are, it's pouring outside. The wind is really blowing, such a foggy night. And it's freezing early in the morning. On the other hand, a climate is the long-term average condition of the atmosphere for the location, the overall weather condition on a particular place throughout the year, and it is very slow to change. Sample statements are, Philippines is a tropical and maritime country. South Pole is extremely cold. The Sahara is arid. Arid means a little to no rain or too dry or barren. To sum up with, weather is what's happening outside right here and right now, and climate is what usually happens here during this time of the year. Weather is affected by temperature, wind conditions, humidity, cloud cover, precipitation, and air pressure, while the climate is affected by the latitude, proximity to water, mountain ranges, elevation, ocean currents, wind and pressure belts. Someone who studies weather is called meteorologist. The study of weather is meteorology. And someone who studies climate is called climatologist. The study of climate is climatology. Why is it important to study weather and climate? Studying the climate and weather help us predict and prepare for the future. Studying the climate help us predict how much rain the next winter might bring or how far sea levels will rise due to the warmer sea temperature. Does weather and climate affects us? Of course. Weather and climate can affect how we build our houses, like this one. It must be designed to avoid flood. The next picture. These are common houses in Batanes in order to prevent typhoon, because as we know, Batanes is where usually the typhoon passed by. It helps our tourism industry. While it is winter in the other country, summer is what we have here in the Philippines, making us the tourist destination that results to many job opportunities and income to many. Affects the kind of food we eat. During summer season, we eat a lot of this food to freshen up the hot day, and while in rainy season, we love to eat food with the hot soup. Can change our mood. When the day is fine, we also feel good. But if it is too hot or cold, we feel sad, especially during rainy days. Can cause health problems. Constant change of weather affects our health, especially if the day is very hot then suddenly it will rain. This causes us to get sick and catch colds. Affects our jobs and agriculture. Weather is one of the reasons we could be late from the work and not a good harvest for the farmers. Lastly, it can destroy properties or worse lives. It's the worst thing that could happen if we continue to do things that will cause to climate change. We can't deny the fact that we humans are also the culprit for the climate change, so we must be responsible and take care of our nature. That ends my topic, everyone. I hope you enjoy and learn something. In the next video, we will be discussing the factors that affects the climate and the weather.
These are the factors that affect the climate. I will start my topic. Give thanks to sun. If it were not for the warming influence of solar radiation, the temperature of the surface and atmosphere would approach the coldest that is physically possible. This is absolute zero or negative 273 degrees Celsius. So, can you imagine what would life would be, or we can't say that there's life in here if we were in this kind of temperature, right? Because it is not habitable, especially for us living things, but not all. Although Earth has a limited ability to generate its own heat by the decay of the radioactive elements in its core. This is insufficient to provide much warming at the surface. Therefore, solar energy is critical to maintaining the surface temperature within a range that organisms can tolerate. See guys, have you not noticed how important it is having a sun in our earth? So we should always put in our mind that we should give thanks to sun. And now, let's move on to the next topic. Atmospheric reflection and absorption. Influence on climatic factors. For instance, cloud cover and tiny particulates are highly reflective of many visible wavelengths of the solar radiation, and so have a marked cooling effects on the lower atmosphere and the surface. And in addition, the atmosphere contains trace concentration of certain gases that absorb some of the infrared radiation that the planet emits to cool itself of the heat obtained by absorbing solar radiation. The most important of these so-called greenhouse gases. I know that we are aware about greenhouse gases. These are water vapor, carbon dioxide, and methane. This influence is called the greenhouse effects, and it maintains the surface temperature of Earth at an average of about 15 degrees Celsius or 33 degrees Celsius warmer than the 18 degrees Celsius it would be without this moderating effect. That's all guys. Thanks for listening. Keep safe.
So, hello everyone. Today we're going to learn day and night. So, what have we observed every day? When we see the sun shining at the sky, it is day, and when we don't, it's night. So today I will share to you my learning about the night and day. Night and day. At any place on the surface, the input of solar radiation is high during the day and low at night. So what I observe every day, the radiation is high because of the sun. At night, the only radiation input are from distant stars and from solar radiation reflected by atmospheric particulates and the moon. So at night, the moon and the stars are the only one that gives light at night. So the moon does not give high solar radiation. These sparse inputs are known as skylight. The skylight is you can observe this every morning. Light of the sun everywhere. Our variation in energy input result in large changes in weather. However, we effect varies greatly between tropical and polar latitude. In 24 hours, also the perfect rotation of the Earth from the Sun. Now, the polar latitude. Polar latitude are much more seasonal with almost continuous light during much of the summer and constant night during part of the winter. So, the polar latitude are for the regions that are common with cold, like the North Pole, the Europe, and etc. Temperature latitude are intermediate with longer day lengths during the summer and shorter ones during the winter. So the temperature latitude is for the regions that are hot, like here in the Philippines, has no snow, and like the Middle East, it has high solar radiation, uh, mostly in summer. That's all for my report. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Seasons. Earth's axis tilts at 23.5-degree angle relative to incidence of solar radiation. Consequently, during the planet's annual revolution around the Sun, there are seasonal differences in energy received between the northern and southern hemispheres. In the northern hemisphere, the angle incidence is closer to perpendicular from March 21 to September 22, giving relative warmer conditions, while in angle is more oblique from September 22 to March 21, resulting in cooler conditions. These reasons are reversed in the southern hemisphere because Earth's orbit is elliptical. Climatic seasons are also influenced by the varying distance from the Sun. However, this effect is relatively small compared with that of the inclination of the axis. So, Earth's axis tilts at 23.5-degree angle in relation to its orbit around the Sun, and that is the reason why we have the seasons. We have four seasons, and these are the spring, summer, fall or the autumn, and the winter. Each season lasts about 3 months. However, the dates of the season where it begins and where it ends may depend on whom you ask. Because we have the definition in finding or knowing the dates of the season, we are the astronomical and the meteorological definition, but let's not focus on the two definition. Instead, let's focus on the two hemispheres of the Earth, because our Earth is divided into parts and it is separated by an imaginary line called the equator. And this imaginary line separates the planet into two hemispheres, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. The planet moves around the sun is called the translation movement. If the Earth tilted towards the sun and received the most direct sunlight, then the northern hemisphere has a season of summer, while in the southern hemisphere has a season of winter. But if the Earth rotates and now it is tilted towards the sun and receives the most sunlight, then the southern hemisphere has a season of summer, while in the northern hemisphere is winter. So aspect. On a local scale, the direction that the slope faces, known as its aspect, has a subtennial influence on the amount of solar radiation received. In the northern hemisphere, south-facing and to a lesser degree west-facing slopes are relatively warm, while north and east-facing slopes are cooler. In southern hemisphere, north-facing slopes are warmer. So this relates to the direction in which a place is facing. Only really affects local climate, not global ones. In the northern hemisphere, south-facing slopes receive far more sunlight than north-facing ones. These are therefore much better for agriculture and often settlement will locate there due to the different aspect. So sa northern hemisphere nga nag-face sa south na nag-receive siya og more sunlight ug ang affect ana soil kay dry. While sa northern hemisphere nga nag-face sa east slopes kay ang soil ana or land kay moist. Kibali mas dagan pag water ang gigunitan ana sa land. So that is their different. That's all for my report.
Good day. So my name is Agent Tihamo. So I'm here to discuss about the slope and soil vegetation under weather and climate. So let's start. So what is slope? Slope is the stiffness of such area, which is especially this area located near mountainside. So the slope and aspect of vegetated surface strongly affects the amount of solar radiation intercepted by the surface. So the solar radiation is one aspect that can affect um, hmm, the absorption nutrients of the soil. That especially the soil is one factor that can is the one factor that feeds the plants to grow properly. Solar, the main component of surface energy balance and influences ecologically critical factors, including microclimate, including near surface temperature, evaporative demands, and soil moisture content of the soil. So at higher altitudes, the air is less dense and air molecules are more spread out and less likely to collide. You can see in the picture. So a location in a mountain has lower average temperatures than one at the base of the mountains. So which bring warmth and dry climate to leeward side of the mountain range. So as you can see in the pictures, this is the leeward side and the windward side. So the windward side, this is the area which is near from the river or the ocean. So the from the river, the wind from the river, the wind will push upward to the windward side or the slope side of the mountain. So the cooler effect of such temperature will absorb by the clouds and it will result in rainfall. So the wind will transfer to the other side, so and it will result to warm temperature, and it will affect the growth of such plants in that area. That's why it will result is as a soil erosion. So at higher altitudes. So a slope can also affect soil erosion, as I've said earlier. So as the slope increases, the type of erosion changes. So as the slope will get higher, or the inclined type of such area will get higher, it will cause more damage, result to death, the residents, or the damage of such area living there. So the number of the pores can absorb water at least in the initial phase. So when the slope is gentle, runoff energy is too weak to carry relative coarse and deep particles very far. So when the type of slope is not actually an inclined type, the higher type of slope, so it will not cause more damage, and it will result as a splash effect, then slowly carried downhill. So let's go to soil vegetation. Soils and vegetations have a reciprocal relationship. So fertile soil encourage plants growth by providing plants with nutrients, acting as a water holding tank. So when the rainfall will start, so this soil will absorb the water, and then it will feed the plants so that the plant will grow properly. So if there is no plant living in such area, so there will no water that will absorb the soil from the soil. So plants, so in return, vegetation, tree and cover forest prevent soil degradation and desertification by stabilizing the soil and maintaining water and nutrient cycling. So if there is no plants living there, or there is no plant growing from that slope, so there is no water that will absorb from the rainfall, so the soil will get moistened and it will get smooth, and it will be result to soil erosion that can cause more damage. So while weather is short-term part of climate, certain weather cycles can still affect soil. Yes, for example, soil can be dried out and rearranged during droughty or windy weather. So in opposite to the landslide. So the if the climate will get hotter, so uh, the area will get drier, so there is no plant living there because there's no water that is stored from that soil. So because of the climate, the warmer climate, so there is no plant living there, the plant will die, and in result it will there is no there is no thing that can hold or can absorb the water, that will get eroded, as I've said earlier. So as the soil is dried out, plant growth is reduced, which reduces the stability of surface layer and allows more erosion. So it will cause more damage. So, so that's it. Thank you for listening, and hope you will learn something from me. Bye. Have a nice day.
Hi everyone, I am Cherboy Laputan, and this time I'm going to discuss ecological aspects, which are the snow and ice cover, evaporation of water, and the importance of climate. First, we have the snow and ice cover. Snow and ice are highly reflective of solar radiation. Surfaces covered by those materials absorb relatively little insolation. Snow cover reflects about 80 to 90% of the sun's energy back into the atmosphere, allowing it to help regulate the exchange of heat between the Earth's surface and the atmosphere. It also helps keep the ground warm. In this figure, it shows the massive ice cover in Arctic Sea. Next, we have the evaporation of water. Evaporation of water. Moist surfaces are cooled by the evaporation of water, a process that absorbs thermal energy. Therefore, the transpiration of water from plants' foliage has a cooling effect similar to the evaporation of sweat from the body surface of human evaporation. Evaporation is a very important part of the water cycle. Heat from the sun or solar energy powers the evaporation process. So, is the water cycle. First, we have evaporation. The water cycle begins in evaporation. It is the process where water at the surface turns into water vapor. Next, we have condensation. As water vaporizes into water vapor, it rises up into the atmosphere. At high altitudes, the water vapor changes into very tiny particles of water droplets because of the low temperature. Then precipitation. The clouds condensed water vapors then pour down as precipitation due to wind or temperature change. Lastly, collection. Some of the water that precipitates does not run off into the rivers, and it's absorbed by the plants or gets evaporated. In this figure, it shows the water cycle. First, we have evaporation, condensation, precipitation, then collection. It will repeat all over and over again. So, importance of climate. There are factors influence the input, reflection, absorption, and dissipation of solar radiation, resulting in large variations of air, water, and surface temperature over the surface of Earth. So climate has an important influence on the character of ecological development in any region or place. Climatic conditions can vary on a large scale called macroclimate, which affect the nature of ecosystem of the large area. Climatic conditions can also vary on a smaller scale called microclimate, which may be affected by the local topography, proximity to the ocean or the large lake. In Canada. So, Canada is a huge country, the second largest in the world after Russia. The wide range of latitude means that the local region climates vary from cold polar in the high Arctic to warm temperature in southern Ontario and southern British Columbia. The next figure shows seasonal pattern of change using temperature as an indicator. So in this figure, it shows the day-by-day temperature in the cities of Canada. This one is the average daily temperature from January at the end of the year of the said year. So in order to protect our nature, we must repair and reset. Repair means renovate, conserve our resources, set goals for the recovery of our nature to prevent massive climate change. In addition, knowledge of the physical world is a central aspect of environmental science. It provides essential context for understanding the causes and consequences of almost all changes that are caused by human activities. The physical and structural attributes of Earth's influence, the geological and geographical forces affect its surface, both water and land, and the atmosphere.
Now that we have finished our topic, let's have another activity to test how far you have learned. That's it for today, everyone. God bless you all and keep safe.